Najee got the dope set up. You looking like you coming from outer space up in here.
He looking like he got 1 million subscribers right now. Just
I
ready.
know what you doing. What games we playing right now, Najee? What we doing? Let's go.
How we get that passive income, baby? Like, you know.
What's going on, y'all? I am Nigeria Chambers of Big Gold Belt Media. It is a pleasure to talk to the three of you about this upcoming episode of Blindspotting. And I swear, if you've seen my content on YouTube from the other cast members I got to speak to a little bit earlier in the season, I've seen a whole season, and I said that episode 4 was by far my favorite episode. And what a treat to talk to you three about it. Lance, I want to start with you because I have a little bit of history in the same settings in which Cuddy in this episode in terms of attending a Filipino party. And my best friend is Filipino, and in high school I was in a very diverse school, and even an ex-girlfriend of mine was Filipino, and I would never forget just that family feeling of coming into the parties and the settings and the vast amount of food and just the random craziness that could happen. I'll never forget the first time I seen a whole pig on the
lechon.
Okay.
Right. Shout out to the lechon.
Yeah. And ever since then I've been I can't have enough of pancit and lumpia.
Hey.
I would love to kind of know for you, first off, in terms of the character Cuddy, what was that exposure to coming into a party? And for yourself, Lance, have you been in a Filipino family gathering and setting?
To go back, when we going into season 2, they had asked, and we had talked about, me potentially dating Jack, and I told them I had a winter prom in high school that I went to, and she was Filipino, and I was so tall that I sat on one knee, and she was just as tall as I was. And so I said that to them. They're like, yes, I think we have to do this. And also, I just got ingratiated to my brother-in-law's half Filipino. His name is Tragic Demi. He's a Bay Area producer. So I just really got ingratiated to the Filipino family. And it's big. The food is big. The love is big. And it can be intimidating. But for me, I think when I'm in intimidating situations, I'm so tall, I kind of just look up and trying to just look out and think happy thoughts like they do in Hook.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, bring it back full circle.
Love that.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I like to say feels a lot like home. And I think it was cool to kind of see that through Cuddy in terms of being uncomfortable, but then really being brought in. I thought Blindspotting does a really good job into adding comedy into very important messages. And I think it was interesting to see Cuddy become open and then become accepting and realize that, we're all the same. And I love that family camaraderie that this episode showed, along with all the randomness. Now, Sir Dante in the corner here.
Yes, sir.
Iconic Dante. What a surprise to see you appear in this episode. This question is
you and me both. For you and me both.
This question is for the three of you all. And Dante, your perspective is obviously different. But when you got the call that you were going to be a part of this episode, what was your thoughts? And for the other two, what was your thoughts when you had looked down the script and say, "Wait, what? Who's going to be in it?" I would love to kind of your initial thoughts about the script for this episode.
Go ahead, Dante. You lead it
off.
Dante, you first, sir.
No,
you go, Pops.
For me, I met Rafa and David a while back through another homie, Utkarsh, and I was doing a song with Utkarsh in the studio with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and the song was called Rufio, and we all met and started hanging out, and it was before Blindspotting the film came out, and I was just, once the film hit, I was so inspired by what they did, and just it blew me away, and just kind of keeping up with what they're doing. And then when the show came out, just really supportive and just in love with them as artists. Like, I really am so proud of what they've been able to create with Blindspotting alone, outside of all the other amazing things they do. And then when they reached out to me, like, "Hey, yo, we've been thinking about bringing you in to do something on season 2. And I was like, "Oh, just on GP, you're like, when dope artists reach out, you're like, I'm in, like, whatever you're doing." And they're like, "Hold up." Then they pitched me the idea. They weren't full throw. It's like, "But would you mind doing something around Rufio?" And I'm like, what you talking about? Like, what you? Because I know April was on the show, so I figure it'd be something with April. It's like you play April's job. Like, yeah, cool, that sounds great. And then they said that we have this thing, like this Rufio thing, and I was like, huh? But then they pitched me, and I really trust them. I really trust them as artists. I really think their perspective and the way they do their storytelling is just phenomenal. And I've been around the block now for a bunch of decades, I guess. So there's certain things that I'm getting used to being somewhat of the vet now in certain roles in my past that have become kind of pillars and iconic for certain generations, and then also for art like the Filipino community, and also me as myself as being someone as part of the Filipino community that when it's time to represent for the community, I I do my best to show up, and it's not even a chore, and it's something like Blindspotting, because this is like it's all fam and it's all these amazing artists you get to work with, and they definitely surprised me. That first script they sent me, I was like, well, what are we doing here? But I think I just had a great time. I mean, I had a great time with the whole project.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go for it, April. Let's hear it.
Yeah, when I heard that Dante was gonna be my dad and as Rufio, my life went full circle, and I'll do my best to like condense it to, the time that we have, but the whole the whole topic of us even being a family in this episode just trips me out, because I remember, watching Hook growing up with my cousins at my grandpa's house in Oakland, right? And just the fact that I got to film with you, Dante, as a family, as a unit, and that scene where we're singing Dahil Sayo, which is
Yeah.
that song is such a legendary song from like all over the decades. My grandpa knows that song. He sang that song. And in the living room when we did that scene, I actually had a picture of me and my grandpa sitting on the chair by the window. And I must have been like 3 years old. And this was the house in Oakland. And it was on the mantelpiece. And it was just very, he's no longer with us, but I just felt like he was there in the room with us and all of my other ancestors, that it's because of them that I got to, and because of you too, Dante, that this all got to come to fruition. And so it's trippy, the fact that I'm still at a loss for words, but yeah.
This is exactly why representation matters so much. And Dante, I'll give it to you in the second last, but Dante, this is a tribute to your work and opening up doors, and now you're seeing your legacy being passed along. And April will be in your seat at a point, and then it's going to be passed along. And I think it's very special. That's why this episode is so dope. This episode just is so dope. It has so many layers for folks to take out of it. Yeah, sure, tons of laugh, but so many important messages. But yeah, for you, Lance, when you read the script, and I swear I love the line where you was like, I did my research. I didn't see nothing offensive about being a pirate. I'm thinking there too, like, wait, is there something I missed here?
But no, a lot of people don't know this, but I write as well. Like I was staffed on the show, and so they brought me in for like a week or so to come into the room to help out a little bit and do some punch ups. So I was aware. And like getting like the Bay Area rap legends, the Too Shorts and E40s, it's part of the course. But to go out and find Rufio, who not everybody knows is from the Bay, and bring him and him say yes, and him have a fight scene with me, and to have the dynamic with the family is just pretty epic for Blindspotting to do. And I think that's more embodying of the show, the dynamic in this episode, more than any other scenes in the season, to be honest. And it was just, I talked about this growing up, you see Hook, you see Rufio, the fan favorite. I went to high school, a guy's like, yeah, Rufio, that's my cousin. I'm like, bro, you wolfing, like, that's all cap. Like, no. So when I heard that he was coming on set, I was like, and he booked it, or he wanted to do the role. I'm like, I'm not even gonna say hi to him. I'm like, yo, is he your cousin? He's like, he is. So
Yeah,
I was like, okay, I went to school with your cousin. What's
I
good?
said
And so
Alexander Sinclair is indeed my first cousin. He's my cousin. He ain't even one of my play cousins. He's like my real cousin.
and he is tall. He is tall too, because he was my basketball teammate in high school for a year or two. So I mean, it really just came full circle. If you'd have told me as a young teenage pubescent boy that I was going to go to school with somebody that was his cousin, first cousin, and as a man, I meet him and I'm fighting him. I mean, you couldn't have scripted it better, to be honest.
Full circle. I want to get in a few other questions quick for my time. And you're talking about the fight, and obviously we got to kind of nod towards the choreography in this too, which is as fun as it was, it's still a measure of work here. Could y'all talk about the prep and the training into bringing this now we have to call it an iconic sequence together?
I mean, we came in early just for the fight scene, and hey, I still got it. You know what I'm saying?
I was going to say, you know, he still has it, and he was teaching me some Perriers or whatever you want to call them, some spins, and I'm like, oh, you still do this? This is what you do. I'm like, I don't do this, but I will try. And you know, we spent a full day rehearsal, and then when we got on set on that night, you know, it was a long day, but we just got it in, and we just had fun. And we went through the whole set in our battle. And I think people are really going to appreciate what we did and how they film it and how they pay homage to the actual scene in the movie. It's dope.
It's really great. Yeah.
Coming back to you, April, another very important element of this episode is Trish trying to sabotage your relationship with Cuddy.
No.
Could you talk about that added element to this episode, but ultimately your relationship as Jackie with Trish, and how would you describe it?
Well, I think it's a very complex relationship that Trish and Jackie have, you know, because they're not only business partners, but they're also best friends. And since they work together in that environment, you know, because before they were at the strip club, and so you almost have no boundaries. Just you're so intimate, like physically and emotionally and mentally, and on top of that, you're best friends and you're inseparable. And it's a sisterhood. You know, we've looked out for each other for years, and I think, you know, at this point, Jackie's character's got to be like in her mid-20s, so I think she's also now after having met Cuddy, she's exploring and finding new emotions.
Yeah.
And that in this episode, even Dante says that Jackie has never fought for any other boyfriend. And she has this moment where she's like, oh, yeah, that's true, So I think she's not, I don't want to say she's completely confused. I think she's just finding new emotions and just trying to understand what it all is. And she still has her wifedom with Trish because what they do have is sacred. But yeah, I mean, when you're in your 20s, you don't have enough time for everything or everyone, and the love is still there and the love is still true. And Jackie's not trying to hurt Trish. In fact, she's still trying to like keep her close when she can. But you know, you can't win. Jackie can't win.
Interesting. I will leave it at that. I will not spoil things to come, but I will say, asking Jalen the same questions, she also echoed a lot of what you said too. So fans should be excited on what's to come. You know, there was a mention in this episode about who everyone's favorite movie was growing up. As Cuddy did mention that he grew up loving Hook. Also sounds like Lance also really loved Hook. I think we all can say in here that we all loved Hook. But yeah, if there was another movie outside of Hook that was very important to everyone's childhood, what would it be?
Ooh.
I mean,
you guys are gonna have to go first.
It's gonna be Goonies, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm about to say Goonies too. Like Goonies was like right on the tip of my tongue. Like Goonies was a lot.
Goonies is where it's at. Like
Yeah.
the ensemble of characters and the older brother, and then you have Fratelli's coming out. The Goonies that's where it's at.
I mean, just to go on an adventure of a lifetime with all your friends, you know, I watched it recently and it holds up. I was like, damn, this movie's still so good.
Yeah. And now the
Man.
pressure is on you, April.
Yeah, I'm gonna say West Side Story. I know that's not quite like a child movie, but I loved watching musicals and MGM musicals growing up. And West Side Story had to have been one of my favorites, and I think that plays a huge part into why I wanted to become an actor. And it also plays a huge part into how I perceive the world the way I do, because that movie really targeted like racism,
Yes,
like
it did.
huge, and classism, and so to grow up watching that and having that like be me going to school learning math or letters and spelling, it just created such a compassionate empathy and ability to see the world beyond beyond color and beyond circumstances, to just realize that we're all, like you said earlier, we're all really just together.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
And did you know the original Chino in West Side Story is Filipino?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Hey, April, what if I told you
He's half Filipino. He's like always, which is crazy because you grew up in a Latin neighborhood. His name's Chino, and if you Asian in a Latin neighborhood, you know what they call you. They call you Chino. So I'm like, oh, and of course he's like, what? So it's crazy.
Dude, that is crazy. Dang, nice. Learning new things still. I love this.
April, what if I told you your assessment in which you described West Side Story is exactly how I feel about Blindspotting, and I think you'll be looking back at your work and what you all are doing here years to come, and I very much try to emphasize the importance of this show, and I think to everything you described for that is what this show is going to be in terms of its legacy will be. I promise I'm going to have 1-2 more questions. While Hook is very much still alive, Dante, for your work, and obviously by this episode as well, obviously we're going to hear a lot of people talking about it and how much this movie has meant to everybody. Another thing that's really important by your whole entire body of work, I would say, is the spirit of Robin Williams. I see a lot of it in your performances, whether it's voice acting and now seeing you on screen. It's much like everybody said when you was on set with him. He touched everybody, and in the sense of just rubbing off his joy, and his skill, and was forever somebody people could go to grasp that bit of information or knowledge from him. I would love if you could a moment to just talk about your time with him and what has he meant to your career.
I mean, rest in peace, Robin Williams. I mean, he's like one of the greatest to ever do it, in a very unique way, and a Bay Area legend. And we talking about Blindspotting, like, he's a Bay Area legend. Like that's one of the first things we connected on when I was on the set. But he was just phenomenal, man. I would show up on my days off. On my days off, I'm like a 15-year-old kid. I just show up on the set just to watch him improv, watch Dustin Hoffman do character work. I mean, I didn't know I was watching Spielberg direct, but I'm sitting next to Spielberg and he starts teaching me directing. But I'm watching Robin Williams and moving 100 miles an hour, and I got to just witness greatness and just kind of like take that in. But then I also got to vibe with him on just like personal level stuff. It was Dead Poet Society was one of my favorite movies before I did the film, and me and my brothers created our own Dead Poet Society with our clique in our neighborhood. And it's crazy because it was called 13607 and a half, and was the address of the place we would all write poems and stuff at. And we'd go to the beach in the middle of the night, baptize. We do everything from the movie. Like we were like, but we're from the neighborhood, so we're like from the hood, but we're like, this is our Dead Poet Society. And he loved this. And we would talk about poetry in the morning, like his favorite poems, my favorite poems, right? Cut to the rap president he gave me was Leaves of Grass, a big leather bound thing, a book of it, and he was such a supporter of me writing poetry. I started a poetry venue in my living room. Like a few years later, that poetry venue became it's Dante's Poetry Lounge. Dante's Poetry Lounge became DPL, Dub Poetry Lounge, which is the biggest weekly open mic venue in Los Angeles and in the country. That became the inspiration, which became Def Poetry Jam on HBO, which went to Broadway, it won a Tony. I attribute the energy of that to Robin Williams. And then one day on the set, my whole crew came, right? My brothers, my cousins, and my clique, 13607.5. And we went to Compton Indoor because we were living in Paramount. So Compton Indoor swapped me. We got a hat made. Said 13607.5, right? Compton Indoor hat, right? And underneath it said, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," like from the movie, right? And so we give him this hat, and there's a picture of me. I'm dressed as Rufio. He's still dressed as like Peter Bannon growing up, and my whole clique with the hats on. We up on the set chilling. And I have a picture in the album. And then I recently ran to his daughter Zelda Williams, right before COVID. And then we were, we got to get coffee and stuff. And so during COVID, she texts me, and she goes, "Oh, hey, I just want to let you know I was going through my dad's stuff, and I look what I found in the box." And she takes a pic. She sends me a picture of the hat.
Oh.
Like all these years, like that's Robin Williams. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. There's something magical about him, and forever, forever. So I just love the time I spent with him, and rest in peace, Robin Williams.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you three for your time today. Again, this episode 4, which is titled "By Hook or by Crook," is my favorite episode of the season, which is not to deter anybody from checking out the entire season. Keep going after this, but episode 4 is definitely something very special. But again, to the three of you, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we get to talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you
Love
so
that.
much.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too.